Section 1.7b, multiplying rational numbers. Today our objective is to multiply fractions. So, to multiply a fraction by a fraction, there are 3 steps. Step 1, multiply the numerators. Step 2, multiply the denominators. Step 3, simplify. It is important to note that the denominator will change when we are multiplying. So our example is 1/2 times 4/5. I will multiply the numerators 1 times 4, and I will multiply the denominators 2 times 5, and I will get 4/10. I know that 2 goes into both of these. My final answer is 2/5. To multiply a fraction by a whole number, there are 3 steps also. Step 1, rewrite the whole number as a fraction. Remember, the denominator will always be 1. Step 2, multiply the fractions, just as we just did. Step 3, simplify. So our example is 2 times 1/3. We're going to rewrite 2 as 2/1. We're going to multiply by 1/3. We multiply the 2 times the 1, which makes 2, and the 1 times the 3, which makes 3. So my answer is 2/3 because that does not simplify. And to multiply mixed numbers. Step 1, convert the mixed numbers to improper fractions. Step 2, multiply the fractions following the rules we just learned. And step 3 is simplify. So our example is 1/2 times 2 1/4. The first thing we need to do is change those to improper fractions. 1/2 becomes 3/2. 2 1/4 becomes 9/4. Now we multiply. 3 times 9 is 27. 2 times 4 is 8. This does not simplify, so we can leave it as 27/8. Here are some examples. Let's look at 4 times 5/8 first. We're going to change the 4 into 4/1. This is the whole number times a fraction. Times 5/8. We multiply our numerators, which gives us 20. We multiply our denominators, which gives us 8. And I know that 4 goes into both of these. So 20 divided by 4 is 5. 8 divided by 4 is 2. My final answer is 5/2. The second problem, 3/4 times 7/12. These are both fractions. I just have to multiply. 3 times 7 is 21. 4 times 12 is 48. I know that 3 goes into both of these, so we will simplify. 21 divided by 3 is 7. 48 divided by 3 is 16. My answer is 7/16. And for this last problem, 2 1/4 times 1 2/5. This is an example of multiplying with mixed numbers. The first step is to change the mixed numbers to improper fractions. 2 1/4 is 9/4. 1 2/5 is 7/5. And now I will multiply. Multiply my numerators and I get 63. Multiply by denominators and I get 20. This does not simplify, so my answer is 63/20. Try this one. Find the product. 8 2/5 times 15 24. All right, the first step is to change the 8 2/5 into an improper fraction. That will be 42/5 times 15/24. Now you might notice that these numbers are going to get quite large. There is something we can do which is called cross-canceling. If you notice that diagonally these numbers have a factor in common, like I know 5 is a factor of 5 and 15, I can divide them both by that and simplify before multiplying. So if I divide them both by 5, my 5 becomes a 1, my 15 becomes a 3. I can do the same thing with the other diagonal, 42 and 24. I know that 2 goes into both of those, so I'm going to divide 42 by 2 to get 21, and 24 by 2 to get 12. This makes my numbers a lot more manageable for multiplying. So 21 times 3 is 63. 1 times 12 is 12. And now I know that 3 goes into both of these. So I'll simplify by 3. And I will get 21/4 as my final answer. All right, try each of these. Notice that these are both a negative times a negative. All right, as we know from our work with integers and decimals, a negative times a negative is always a positive. So for letter A, we're going to change negative 2 2/3 to an improper fraction, which is negative 8/3 times negative 2 1/4 becomes negative 9/4. And now we're going to multiply. The negative sign, you can either think of it as being at the top, the bottom, or right in the middle. It can kind of float around in your mind. I'm going to think of it as the top for this example. So negative 8 times negative 9 makes positive 72. 3 times 4 makes 12. And I know that 12 actually goes into both of these. So my answer is going to be a whole number answer. So 72 divided by 12 is 6. 12 divided by 12 is 1. My answer is positive 6. For letter C, we change our numbers into improper fractions. Negative 2 2/5 becomes negative 12/5. And negative 1 1/3 becomes negative 4/3. Now I will multiply negative 12 times negative 4 makes 48, positive. 5 times 3 makes 15. And I know that 3 goes into both of these. So I get 16 over 5 is my final answer. Try these. We're going to find each product. Notice that these are both a negative times a positive. All right, as we've talked about with integers and decimals, a negative times a positive is always a negative. So let's multiply. The letter A, negative 3/5 will stay the same right off the bat. 4 1/6 will have to become 25/6. Now I'm going to multiply negative 3 times 25 is negative 75. 5 times 6 is 30. All right, now this one you may not see right off the bat, but actually 15 goes into both of these. 75 divided by 15 is negative 5. And 30 divided by 15 is 2. My answer is negative 5/2. For letter C, we're going to change negative 1 11/16 into an improper fraction, which becomes negative 27/16. And we have 8/9 still. Now this one, let's look at cross-canceling, because 27 times 8 and 16 times 9 are going to give me some big numbers. I know that diagonally with the 27 and the 9, 9 goes into both of those. We'll divide them both by 9. The negative 27 becomes a negative 3. The 9 becomes a 1. I also know that at the other diagonal with 16 and 8, 8 goes into both of those. So divide them both by 8, I get a 1. My 16 becomes a 2. Now I can multiply much more manageably. I'm really looking at negative 3/2 times 1/1, which is going to give me negative 3/2. Now, if you don't notice the cross-canceling, that is totally fine. You'll just have a little bit more reducing to do in the end. So, a word problem. Free diving is an underwater activity in which the diver does not use scuba gear. When James free dives, he can descend 1 1/3 foot per second below sea level. How far below sea level can James descend in 5 seconds? So we are going to take our 1 1/3 and we're going to multiply it by 5. Well, let's change 1 1/3 to an improper fraction. 4/3 times 5. 5/1. Now we multiply our numerators and we multiply our denominators. We get 20/3. For word problems, it makes more sense to turn this into a mixed number. So 3 goes into 26 full times with 2 left over out of the 3. He will descend 6 2/3 feet in 5 seconds. Your assignment is the multiplying fractions work.